Hi, welcome back to another episode of Mental Health Monday with my friend Krista. What's up?
What's up?
I'm good. Let the folks know what you do.
So I'm a trainer here in Washington, D.C., and I also do virtual stuff, but my focus is on body affirming fitness. Mm-hmm. So teaching you about your body, what your body needs to be well, and just holding you in your innate worthiness when it comes to your health and wellness.
Okay. Tell me about the industry that you're a part of and its importance.
So, man, the fitness industry is super toxic in terms of where it started, right? In terms of like the framework of there's something wrong with you, you need to change your body. And that's a very blanket statement. That's not everybody in the fitness industry, but as a whole, the fitness industry doesn't necessarily honor you and your innate worthiness. It's more like, oh, you need to lose weight, or oh, you need to do this, you need to change something about yourself. Yeah. And that's not what I bring to the table. And a lot of us doing the work in terms of body affirming fitness, body positive fitness, and health and well-being. So a lot of times when you think of personal trainers or you think of the fitness industry, it feels very intimidating. It feels very like weight loss focused, and we're working to change that about the fitness industry and about the health industry. To be a space that's inclusive, to be a space that honors your body and celebrates your body as it is, and teaches you and gives you the tools so that you can care for your body in the best way possible.
Okay. How would you say our relationship with our bodies starts?
Well, I mean, we weren't born feeling shame about our bodies. We just weren't. And that's a learned experience from a very young age. And so really how we feel about our bodies is shaped from, what we hear people say about our bodies, both directly and indirectly, what we hear people say about their own bodies, right? Especially the people close to us, our parents, our caretakers, our society as a whole, which we know hopefully by now is very fat phobic, very racist, very, right, we have homophobia, we have ableism, we have all of these things that can shape how you feel in your body. Yeah. And that's a framework that needs to be addressed when it comes to your health and well-being, because it affects you directly in how you feel about your body, right? And the trauma that you have, micro trauma or major traumas around your physical body. And when we totally ignore that as being a truth, right, we're doing ourselves a disservice, because our bodies are more than just physical. We're mental, emotional, spiritual, sexual, physical beings. And part of caring for your body is looking at that holistic picture. And so there's a lot of things, to go back to your question, there's a lot of things that frame how we feel about our physical bodies as we develop and as we age. And kind of, those are just some examples of things that might play a role in how we feel.
Okay, so in terms of the content that you've created over the year, what has been your focus?
My focus has been around movement being accessible for everybody, and the truth that you are worthy as you are, right? So as someone whose background, I was an athlete my whole life, I enjoy moving. I know that's not the case for everyone, because again, just like how we have things that affect how we feel about our physical body, movement doesn't necessarily feel accessible to everybody. Even though movement is super healing and super empowering, not all of our experiences around movement have been positive, right? So again, if you are someone who has been shamed for your body and you use movement as a response to that shame, movement might not feel joyful for you, right? If you are someone who has used movement as punishment, right? Oh, I just ate this. That's what was modeled to you. That's what you have practiced. Movement might not feel joyful for you. Or if you're someone who has a disability and movement is painful, Or you have chronic illness or chronic pain, and movement is hard and movement is painful. Movement might not feel joyful for you or feel accessible to you.
Yeah.
And so I want to put out another story when it comes to movement, right? That movement is empowering, that movement is healing, and that movement is for everybody.
Yeah.
And that learning to care for your body as it is now is one of the most empowering things that you can do over your entire lifetime, right? Because your body tells you what it needs to be well. We just have to learn to listen to it. And so one of my goals as a trainer is to help you tune into your body in that way, whether it's with basic movements like breathing and rocking and rolling and crawling, or more advanced movements, right? Finding that balance for you is important.
So in your journey of helping people find their balance, what lessons have you come across?
Everyone comes to the table with their own thing, right? And so being able to honor that experience for other people as well as myself, right? And coming from a space where, I had an eating disorder and had to go through relearning my relationship with my body, my relationship with food. One of the biggest lessons I learned was that to honor people's experiences, to honor my own experience. So whether it was, I feel uncomfortable in my body right now, and that's okay. That's a really empowering statement, right? And same thing for others. When they come to me with, all of their experiences around their physical body, around movement, and being like, you know what? That's okay. That's okay that you feel that way. I see you, I hear you, and, we're honoring that for you. That's a really, really important place to start with people and myself. So I include myself in that, is honoring their truth. The second thing is learning is super empowering, right? And I don't want you to have to work with me forever. I want to help teach you so that you feel empowered to care for your body in the best way possible. And that's going to look different for me than it looks for you.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we think health looks a particular way. It's this size, it's this shape. And that's just not true, right? So not only are we learning, but we're also unlearning a lot of things that society has told us what health is, right? We live in a super fat phobic society. So if you don't look a particular way, you think, oh, I'm not healthy, right? And that's not true. Like health is not a size. So learning and unlearning is another component. It's really important when it comes to your health and well-being, right? So honoring your experience, being a forever learner and unlearning as a part of that can go a long way, right? And that's before we're even talking about movement, right? Like just those two things when working with people and when thinking about yourself and your own health and wellness journey, like those are really important foundations of like, okay, where am I right now? How can I honor that experience? What are the things that I need to learn? What are the things I need to unlearn?
Yeah. What would you say the fitness industry role has been in this journey?
Like for me?
Well, as a society, what role has it played on society when it comes to the fitness industry?
I think that it's been, it's a journey in itself, right? You're seeing more and more people in the fitness industry who are challenging those beliefs that health is a certain size or shape, and challenging the kind of aesthetic of fitness, right? And I think that's amazing. I love being a part of it. But I think that the fitness industry as a whole and how it started was very reflective as our society as a whole, right? Very fat phobic, very white centric. And we're at a point where people are like, enough. Like, we're not doing that anymore. That's not really healthy. That's not really health. That's not honoring everyone as human beings, right? In our experiences. And I can only speak for myself, in terms of like how the fitness industry has affected me. But, I was always an athlete. I grew up in a family who loved moving, who valued movement. And I found myself in a place where I hated my body, movement was punishment. It was not joyful. And, even with all of my positive experiences, I still ended up in that place. And I still doubted my worthiness as a human being. I still felt very uncomfortable in my body. And it's just hard when everything you see looks a particular way, right? And that's coming from a small white person, right? Yeah. So just imagine, I can only imagine and appreciate someone who does not look like me, right? And I feel like the fitness industry plays a role in that, right? It's like, you're telling people they are not okay as they are. You're telling people they need to change. You're telling people if they don't look a particular way, there's something wrong with them. They're not healthy. And that's just super toxic. And that's not okay. Which is why I'm so thankful that, that there are so many people doing the work to say otherwise.
Yeah. Okay. So how does this relate to mental health?
I mean, we're more than physical beings, right? And everything is related. Mental, physical, spiritual, all the things. And usually how we feel about our physical bodies is directly related to our mental health, right? So for example, what we were talking about earlier in terms of weight loss, weight loss isn't necessarily bad. It's not, weight loss has been kind of deemed as bad, or don't think about weight loss, or it's not about weight loss, which it's not, right? Again, health doesn't look a particular way, and your weight isn't indicative of your health status. But if you're going to care for yourself, holistically speaking, it's important to also take into consideration your trauma, right? And that's not just physical trauma, that's mental, emotional trauma as well. So even something as simple as weight loss, you could say, well, I want to lose weight. Well, why? Why is that important to me?
Yeah.
Is it because I care for my body and I want to take care of my body in the best way possible? So I'm focusing on those behaviors, right? To care for my body, moving my body, fueling my body, getting adequate sleep, fostering positive and healthy relationships. Like, I'm focusing on all those things, and weight loss is a byproduct of that. Great. Or is weight loss, is that my why behind that because I feel shame? Because I feel shame about my physical body. Those are two very different things, right? And how I feel and kind of the underlying component on one side is I love and care for my body, and the underlying component on the other side is I feel shame about my body, and I have linked my worthiness to my physical body, right? And those two things are entirely separate. You are worthy as you are. And if I don't take into consideration my mental health in my physical health, then I am not able to care for myself in the best way possible, right? Because there's a lot of work that needs to be done here that doesn't necessarily have to do with physical, right? Because let's say I do all the things and I do lose weight. If I haven't addressed that, where my worthiness is coming from, where I feel shame, I'm going to feel, it's not really going to change my experience.
The results won't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter because I'm still going to feel unworthy, whether I'm this weight or this weight. And I think that's where the intersection between mental and physical health happens a lot of times, is kind of exploring your why. Why is this important to me? Why is this goal, health and fitness goal, important to me? What is at the root? Is it because I love and care for my body, or is it because I feel shame? Is it because I have some type of trauma around my worthiness? And I mean, that's like with a lot of things. Yeah. Right. And there's also the component of, everything is interrelated. So when I care for my, moving my body can help me feel empowered. Moving my body can bring me joy. Moving my body can teach me a lot of new things that that affect the way I feel mentally. Like it works both ways, right? So dealing with and focusing on like, what is the root of this? Where is my trauma? Can help you and feel empowered to move your body, and moving your body can help heal your mental, emotional body as well.
Okay. Would you say your experience and what you've gone through plays into the work that you do now?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, I'm pretty transparent that I had a eating disorder, and it just totally framed the way I think about movement and I think about coaching. And one, it was super hard to go through recovery and relearn food and relearn, caring for my body, because I was super dissociated with my body and with food and with, all of those things. So it's given me a different perspective of just how much labor intensive it is to do that type of work.
Yeah.
And also, empathy and building empathy. And as someone who has gone through it, I feel like I can come to the table with as a more empathetic person, which should be our goal, right? To just continue to build empathy for others and care for others in that way. Another thing is that, everything I was taught in terms of, health and wellness and fitness, and even in school and like learning about the body and programming, right? And, you do this exercise prescription for if you want to build muscle. Like, I know all of those things, and that's important. But what's really important as a coach is to help empower people so that they feel confident to care for their bodies. And that's going to look different for every different person, right? So what brings you joy?
Yeah.
What brings you joy in terms of movement? Is it dancing? Is it swimming? Is it jumping rope? Is it lifting? Is it, walking in nature? Is it walking your dog? Is it doing it with friends? Like, what is it that brings you joy? So helping clients figure that out for themselves so that they can be as consistent as possible with it. So it's like, learned all these things in school, and I was an athlete, and challenging your body is great. However, kind of after starting from ground zero, relearning my body, relearning food, I just have a different appreciation for movement and the importance of having it be joyful, having it be honoring your body, and learning as much as you can about your body so you can care for it. Just a different perspective in terms of movement and health and all that.
So is one of your goals as a trainer to have your clients work past you in terms of what they need for themselves?
For sure. I mean, training is great. And if you have the money to do it consistently with a trainer, great. But it's just not accessible for everyone, at least not long term. So my goal as a trainer is to help you learn about your body, what it needs to be well, and so you can continue that process on your own. And obviously I'm here if you need, but I want you to feel empowered to take that on for yourself and to be an explorer, right? Ask yourself questions. Okay, what is my body telling me when I feel this? Oh, I'm really tired. What could be going on? Or I have pain. What could be happening? And you might not know the answers, which is where we come in as health professionals. But how can I tune into my body? And how can I listen to my body so I can care for it in the best way possible? And that goes beyond me, right? Because you are the expert when it comes to your body. And my clients are the expert when it comes to their body. I'm just here to help guide you along the way, right? So it definitely goes beyond me. And I want it to be the point where you're like, okay, I'm good. Like, I might need to check in, but I'm good. I know what I need to do. I know what brings me joy. I have built my wellness toolbox, and I feel totally empowered to do it on my own.
How does your relationship with boundaries play into this?
Oh, man. I mean, boundaries are super important in any relationship, right? So that includes a relationship with yourself. That includes a relationship with your clients. That includes, any relationship that you might have. And I feel like it's really hard for people. Boundaries are really hard because we don't want to upset others and we want to be appeasing for a lot of us. But creating boundaries is one of the healthiest things that you can do for yourself. And that's the same thing, you know, with health and wellness, right? Like having healthy boundaries with the people around you allows you to honor your own experience and allows you to honor your own time. So for example, like, and when it boundaries is like kind of general, but like let's specifically talk about boundaries with my clients. I'm teaching my clients to value themselves and to value their health and wellness. Well, I have to do the same for myself.
Yeah.
So I have to create boundaries around my schedule, my work schedule, right? So I have to say no, right? These are the times I'm working. These are the times I'm not working. There's that, right? Then there's, you know, boundaries in terms of my clients setting boundaries for themselves, right? For their own work schedules, for their own like relationships. No, this is my time for myself. This is my time to work out. This is my time to move. I have to create boundaries. Otherwise it's not going to happen. Right? So there's that aspect of my work, my time for myself, my clients' work, their time for themselves, to honor their time to move their bodies and care for their bodies. And then just generally creating boundaries for like how people treat you.
Yeah.
Right? That plays a huge role in how you feel about yourself. And that looks different for me than it will for everybody else. The creating boundaries for the type of content that you get, right? So on social media, like how much you're seeing around like with fitness stuff, like you go on Instagram and you can see anybody doing fitness stuff, wearing minimal clothes. Not that it's bad, wear what you want to wear, but like if that's not helping your well-being, if that's not helping you repair the relationship with your body, if you're struggling with that, then you can create a boundary around the things that you see on social media. So as with anything, boundaries are super important, right? Whether it's honoring your time, whether it's honoring having other people honor your time, whether it's the content that you see on social media or hear or whatever. So it all plays a role in rebuilding that relationship, being able to care for your body, being able to care for yourself.
What's some advice you would give someone who would like to advocate for themselves?
Trust your intuition, right? I mean, you know what you need. You know what's right for you. Yeah. And I can't tell you what that is. Even as a health professional, I can't tell you what that is. So for example, one thing that I really struggled with was my weight. When I was recovering from an eating disorder, seeing my weight on a scale was super triggering for me. And so I created a boundary when I went to and advocated for myself when I went to the doctor. Can I turn around?
Yeah.
Like, you can mark down my weight. I don't care, but I don't want to see it. Because that was just something I didn't want to expose myself to at the time, because it would make me super anxious. And then I'd have to go through that process for myself of like, recentering myself. So yeah, I can do that. And at that point I had developed a lot of skills to be able to do that. But was that necessary? No, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to put myself through that. So I said, you know what? Can I just turn around, or can you not take my weight? Yeah, that's fine. You can do that. Yeah. So learning what that is for you, and that's like just one example of how you can advocate for yourself in that wellness space. But there's a lot of things that are triggering. There's a lot of things that might not be the best choice for you. And learning what those things are, and then learning to advocate for yourself in that way. And there's a lot of people doing the work on social media and Instagram. So like finding someone that might have some language for you of, how can I advocate for myself in the health and wellness space, or just people sharing their experiences and their stories. It's so empowering to share your own story. Like all of that can be helpful in learning how to advocate for yourself in that way, especially when it comes to that health and wellness space.
Okay. When it's come to clients and people that have reached out to you, what have you come across? What's the most common question you get?
One of the most common questions I get is around food. Like, what should I eat? I feel like I get that question a lot. And I'm not a registered dietitian, so I can't prescribe food like I can prescribe exercise. But that's probably one of the biggest questions. What should I eat, or what should I eat when, or is this bad, or whatever. And food is just food, to be honest. And at the end of the day, we make a million food choices, right? Every single day, multiple times a day. And so it's kind of how I look at food is it's on that continuum of this is the best thing I could possibly eat. And best is a judgment word, but meaning like if this is the food that I could eat that will give me the most nutrients possible. And this is the least nutritive food, like on this kind of scale. I make choices every day along that continuum. Every single day, multiple times a day. And the goal is to eat as many nutritive foods that will help give your body the tools it needs as possible, right? And so the first step is just knowing what those things are. This is whole foods, foods as grown, minimally processed foods, right? Fruits, vegetables, beans, legumes, whole grains, drinking lots of water. And this is highly processed foods, foods that you get on a shelf that have that might have chemicals in it, that might have just like very processed ingredients, right?
The difference between being in a can and being out and open.
Right. And, this isn't going to do as much for my body as this, right? So how can I use food to help nourish my body in the best way possible, right? There's no judgments along that continuum, but if I know what this is, I know it's not going to do as much for my body as this. The goal is to choose as many foods as you can on this end. Right? And that's not even taking into consideration like certain things that your body might be going through. People have chronic illness, people have chronic disease. Your body might be lacking certain nutrients. So working with a health professional, working with a registered dietitian is the best choice when it comes to your food, because your body is different than my body. But generally speaking, right, eating as many whole foods, foods as grown, minimally processed foods as possible is going to set you up where your body can kind of take care of itself when it comes to food. That was a very simple, that's a very simple answer to that question, but that's like probably one of the most popular questions I get. Like, what should I eat? When should I eat it? Is this bad for me or whatever?
How did you recreate your relationship with food?
Oh man, it was so hard. It took so much intention. I worked with a counselor. I worked with a mental health counselor as I went through recovery. So I strongly suggest that if you have the means. And there's so many resources out there. I know that you put a lot out in terms of affordable counseling. But when it comes to an eating disorder, a lot of times there's like an underlying trauma. So that was like the first thing, was kind of getting to that, what is that underlying trauma for me? And then when it came to food, I had kind of whittled my world down to food, right? So I used food to deal with life. I'm anxious food, instead of actually sitting with that. So like I had been so disconnected to my own experience, especially my emotional experience. It's like very, very step one was looking at the feelings wheel. Like if you were like, how do you feel right now? I'd be like, good, bad, fine, like, which are all kind of judgment words. They're not actually describing how I feel. So I would just like sit there and look at the feelings wheel. I don't know if you're familiar with the feelings wheel.
No, I'm not.
So the feelings wheel, it's like a colorful wheel.
How are you feeling?
Yeah. And it has like
kind of
some base feelings like sad, happy, like, and then there's a lot of like descriptive words that go out from there. And so there's like tons of adjectives of how you could be feeling. And it's just a tool. Like, I'm feeling, and you can look at it, and maybe you start with colors like red. Like, this red area is resonating with me. Sad, angry, all these words to describe how you might be feeling. Happy, it might be joyful, it might be, and so there's like colors, sections, and there's words. And so it's a useful tool if you've become super disconnected with how you feel.
Yeah.
And that was me. That was my experience. So that was like step one. It's like, I'm feeling this way. And I literally would look at the wheel and I would point. And I was like, how did I even get to this point? I like literally cannot even describe to you how I feel right now.
Yeah.
So that was step one. It's just like reconnecting to my emotional self because I was totally disconnected.
Yeah.
And then step two was like going through that process of
Putting
like
your arm around yourself.
Yeah. And just addressing that underlying trauma, right? What it was, kind of beyond food. Like, what was that underlying trauma? Because usually an eating disorder is a protective mechanism, right? And you use that to protect yourself from some type of trauma, right? A lot of micro traumas, a large trauma, whatever it is. So kind of getting to that underlying thing. And then the next, after you do that and kind of through the process of doing that, you start looking at food in a different way, right? So there was a lot of anxiety around food when it came to like the feelings of being full. I had bulimia, so there was a lot of like binging, purging. So, and a lot of emotions behind there because I had used food to replace like actually addressing emotions. So I kind of had to separate those two things, right? And I did a lot of journaling when it came to food. So I would get out my journal and I might like keep it beside me when I ate. Okay, like I'm making a plate and I'm sitting and I'm like being present with eating. How am I feeling right now? I might take a few bites.
Yeah.
And it's like working through that anxiety, working through that emotional component of food because I had used food to just like replace dealing with all of those things.
Yeah.
So I had to be really intentional about like paying attention and tuning into how I was feeling as I was eating, after I was eating, if I wanted to eat. Okay, well, am I hungry right now, or is there something going on that I don't want to address?
Yeah.
So it was like a very time-consuming and difficult process of relearning food, right? And there was a time when I was like, is it always going to be this way? Like, is it always going to be this hard? Like, because food is just food for most people.
Yeah.
It was not just food for me. It was like this whole anxiety-provoking experience. And it took so much time. It took so much intention. It took a lot of help, right? From my counselor of like learning how to manage that stress and that anxiety as I was eating, right? Or like building that toolbox of wellness. Okay, so I know I feel uncomfortable when I feel full. So what can I do after I eat to help like ease that experience? Okay, well, I can go on a walk, or I can go do the laundry and kind of separate myself from the kitchen.
Yeah.
And that'll help me allow my body to digest and then not feel as full, and then can be a little less anxious about the whole thing.
Isn't it important to change your environment? Like how you're saying, I had to move away from the room because my food trauma was related to the kitchen in a certain sense after eating. So I had to give that space.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it depends on the person. Every person is different. Every person's trauma is different. And same thing with eating disorders, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's going to look different for me than it might look for you. But the underlying thing is that you use food as like a coping mechanism, right? Your world has become really small that it's just like food. That's it. Which again is a protective mechanism a lot of times, but you have to kind of relearn food as a separate part from that emotional stuff. So for me, moving away from the kitchen and moving away from the table to help me manage that anxiety of feeling full was super helpful. Mm-hmm. Right? So that can be a tool that you have, that you remove yourself from that situation and that space. Mm-hmm. But that would depend on the person and what kind of triggers that person has, especially when it comes to like an eating disorder.
What other tools would you say are necessary for overcoming or working through a moment?
With food? Like,
well, not just with food, in general, that you've learned in your journey.
Like a moment, like a triggering moment. Mm-hmm. I think it kind of goes back to what I said, like when things I've learned from my own experience in working with clients is one of the most empowering things you can do for yourself, especially in those moments, is giving yourself grace, right? So acknowledging that experience for yourself, right? So I'm, little things like, I feel uncomfortable right now, or I feel anxious right now, and that's okay. Because there's so much judgment that we place on those negative feelings and those negative moments or those triggering moments, right? Yeah. And so if the very first thing you do is judge yourself, you're not giving yourself the grace and the space to work through it, right? So I feel this way right now, and that's okay. Or I don't know how I'm feeling right now. Maybe I can journal about it for myself. Or I'm really anxious right now, and that's okay. Or I need some help right now. Like whatever it is, but acknowledging that experience for yourself is super important in those moments where you're feeling triggered, you're feeling anxious, you're feeling insecure, whether it's about your body or how you feel in your body or food or whatever it is. Yeah. That can be a springboard to you working through that that in a positive way, instead of spiraling downward of like, I feel insecure, I feel anxious, and there's something wrong with me, and I'm unworthy, and you know what I mean? Like, you can go one of two directions. You can move forward in a positive way that honors that experience, that has solutions, or you can spiral downward into that unworthiness loop. And knowing what you need in that moment, very first step, acknowledging that for yourself. And it takes time, right, of knowing what you need in that moment. But I think that's one of the most important first steps, is just acknowledging that. I'm going through it right now. I feel this way. I'm having a trigger, I'm having anxiety, I'm having whatever it is right now. And that's okay. I'm a human being, and I feel a lot of different things on every given day. Yeah. Right? And that can be applied to a lot of things, not just eating disorders or how you feel about your body or what have you. So.
All right. So on your IG for, I'd say about 2 years, you've been creating content to show folks how they can be active within their everyday space. Where does that concept come from?
Well, again, like just movement being accessible, I think that's really important. Whether you are someone who is relearning your relationship with food, relearning your relationship with your body, whether you are someone who has a disability, whether you are someone who has chronic illness, whether you are someone who, might not have the financial means to buy all of this equipment or go to the gym, have a gym membership or whatever, like movement is still possible and movement is still accessible. So how can you use the things that you have in your life currently, whether it's in your home, whether it's just going outside and moving your body to take care of yourself, to take care of your body. Again, that's kind of like the framework of what I do as a trainer, right? How can we use movement to heal? How can we use movement to empower? And how can that be accessible for everyone? So, for example, during the pandemic and even now, like gyms were closed. Yeah. So if the only thing you know how to do is to move your body in the gym, then what? Yeah. So I need a dumbbell, or I need a kettlebell, or I need a barbell, or I need all these things to move my body. Then you're super limited in what you can do. Yeah. Right? But what if I could just throw weight in a backpack that I already have, and that could be books, that could be items around the house? What if I used jugs of my laundry detergent? Or what if I just used my body weight and I learned how to create tension in my own body? Like, how can I move in that way? How can I learn about my body in that way? Movement becomes a lot more accessible, right? Regardless of what equipment you have, regardless of what kind of financial means you have, or regardless of what environment you're in the gym, in home, outside, whatever it is, movement can become super accessible if you think of it more holistically than, oh, I have to have this equipment, or I have to be in this space, or I have to have this, right? Because that can feel like very boxed in. Like, oh, I can't move if I don't have these things in place. And that's not true about movement. And so I wanted my platform to showcase that you can move anywhere. Anybody can move at any time with any equipment or not, or no equipment.
So in this business of repurposing thoughts and feelings, what do you think is the next step for where you're headed?
Ideally, I'm working on creating some workshops, right? Some self-guided workshops, because for me, health is a social justice issue. Everyone should have access to healthcare, and that includes the tools to care for your body. That includes education. That includes resources to care for your body in the best way possible. And so much of what I do now is like one-on-one training and kind of working with people in that way. And I have also created a free resource page, not only just like resources I've created, but other people doing the work and other resources that other people kind of have created in terms of mental health, in terms of moving your body, food, all those things. So kind of my next step is creating some low-cost self-guided resources for people around moving, around kind of the foundations of strength, right? Diaphragm, pelvic floor, how that works together, joint health. So there's something for everybody, right? You can do one-on-one training. You can use some of the free resources, or you can do, you can have like a one-time purchase thing where you can learn about your body and you can apply that learning through movement and build that wellness toolbox from that angle, right? So in terms of repurposing and relearning, like, I just think that it's really important to have access for all. And that includes free stuff, that includes paid stuff, kind of multiple tiers, so that there's something for everybody, whether it's with me or me directing you to somebody else. That's kind of my next steps, is creating more access to healthcare and information.
Okay. What are your plans with Get Home Safe?
Well, obviously I love what you do, or I wouldn't be here. And I think there's a conversation to be had around the body and mental health and physical health. I think there's a conversation to be had around eating disorders, specifically one because that's near and dear to my heart. But also it plays a huge role in your mental health, plays a huge role in how you feel about your body and in moving your body. So I just kind of want to continue that conversation.
Okay,
with
so
you.
Where can the people find you?
You can find me on Instagram, By Christa. You can also go to my website, bychrista.com. You can check out that free resource page. If you see stuff you like, let me know. If you see stuff that's missing, let me know, because it's ongoing. But yeah, I'm on YouTube as well. There's not as much on YouTube, but
it's coming.
I'm definitely working on it.
It's definitely coming. It's
definitely working on it.
That is a promise.
But yeah, I mean, there's so many people doing the work. So I think one thing I would like to leave people with is that find someone that resonates with you. Find a space where you feel safe. It's not going to be me for everybody, and that's okay, right? Whether it's me personally or my message, I take no offense to it if it doesn't resonate with you. Because at the end of the day, right, I'm a small person. I'm a white person. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but that might not be a space where you feel the safest.
Yeah.
And that's okay. So Check out my resource page. I've included other health professionals that I follow that are doing really amazing work on holding your innate worthiness in this wellness space. So if it's not me that kind of helps you, I hope you at least take the next step, right? Because it's super, if you feel like, oh, there's nothing for me, or there's nothing that resonates with me, and then you're stagnant and you don't take that next step, do it. Take that next step. Find someone in someone's message who resonates with you, and go for it and go with it. Because really, you have the tools that you need to be well. You have everything you need to care for your body. You just kind of have to listen to your body and fine tune it, and find those people that resonate with you, that give you that safe space to kind of springboard change. So
okay,
that's what I have to say about that.
Well, this has been another episode of Mental Health Monday. I really appreciate Christa pulling up on me.
Appreciate you having me.
Of course, we have a lot of work to accomplish and so much content to create together. I'm excited for that, because as I've said before, I look for people that are touching on things that my platform isn't really covering. And for me, I think, hey, how can I create a space for this and this person on what we've created? And does there need to be a voice here? So for me, I'm like, yeah. So if you want the voice, make it yourself.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you saying yes.
I appreciate you having me. There's definitely more conversations to be had around body stuff, around eating disorders.
Yeah.
I think it's more common than people think. And I think it's super empowering to share your story, for me and also for other people. And I know that there's more people who have things to say about it.
Yeah.
You know, around food, around body image, and all those things.
Yeah.
So, and then not just women, right? Men included.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's coming. It's
coming.
coming. The room is much bigger. It's much bigger. But this has been another episode of Mental Health Monday. Catch you guys soon.